учасники, я радий вам представити нашого спікера, співзасновника ініціативи «Професійний уряд», Easy Business, члена Національної ради реформ та президента Національного клубу випускників Гарварду Даніїла Паська, без національного, просто клубу випускників Гарварду Даніїла Паська. Прошу привітати його оплесками.
Друзі, добрий день. Дуже приємно вас бачити. Тут у Могилянці є правило, що якщо тут хтось робить виступ, може виступати або українською, або англійською мовою. Я вибачаюсь, у мене українська третя мова. Я ще вчусь, намагаюся, але рівень української мови ще не там, де я бажаю цього, і, мабуть, буде багато помилок.
Та ви кокетуєте, у вас прекрасна українська.
Ну, це я готувався, це ще заготовлений. Тобто питання до вас. Хто не розуміє англійську мову? Якщо я буду розмовляти з вами англійською мовою. Англійська мова. Комфортно з англійською?
Така термінологія, так.
Є? Англійська мова добра?
З переводом.
Окей. If I'm going to be talking too fast, or if you won't be understand something, just raise your hand, okay? Understand? Yes. This is not going to be a lecture. So, in general, I don't think that I have anything to lecture anyone about. In general, I don't like lectures. I think somebody gives a lecture means that the person is super experienced or super smart, and I don't think that with me and you there is such a state. In general, at Harvard Business School, we don't have lectures. Not even one. Not even once somebody comes and gives a lecture. Always it's a discussion. And the way they explain it is, how many years of experience do you think I have? Your guess. How many years of experience?
15.
Any relevant experience to you?
I don't know what you're talking about.
15 probably, right? Somebody said 15.
Working experience.
Probably yes. Yeah,
I don't know.
maybe 15. But here we have how many people? 30, maybe 35, and each one of you has maybe 5 years of experience. So it's at least 150 years of experience in this room. So just giving a lecture 15 years versus 150 years. This is a disbalance. So it's not going to be a lecture. It's going to be a discussion. And the way the discussion is going to be run, we're going to be talking about things. I like the topic of freedom. It doesn't mean that I know a lot about freedom, but that's the topic I'm interested in. So we're going to be discussing freedom. And I have a structure, but we may wander out of the structure or maybe within that structure. And I'll be asking questions. We'll be thinking together. You'll be giving me your ideas. You'll be criticizing my ideas. And I think it's going to be a productive discussion where everyone will walk out of it with maybe more questions than answers. And I think that's the right way. I think if I would give you answers, that would be a wrong state. I think if you walk out of here with questions, that's more important, because you're going to be continue thinking about it. The way we're going to do it is whenever you want to say something, you raise your hand. Don't talk if I don't call on you. But I'll be trying to manage it in a way that everyone has a chance to speak. But whenever you want to speak or whenever you want to give an answer, just raise your hand and I'll be pointing to you and you'll be talking. You can talk for as long as you want. And usually when you talk, you see that either you control the audience or not. So if you feel that you lost the audience, maybe you should stop talking. At least that's what I felt when we were at HBS. Second part is, my favorite professor at Harvard Business School was Clayton Christensen. And the way he wrote his books was, he was giving his concepts to his students, and the students had to criticize the concepts. Actually, instead of the exam at the end of his course, you had to write a paper where you had to choose his concept and find a situation where his concept doesn't work, and prove that in some cases his concept is wrong. That's how he improved his hypothesis time after time. And that's how his thinking evolved. And that's why we're also going to be discussing and you'll be criticizing my concepts. And that's how my thinking will evolve. I'm going to be using this discussion to improve my understanding of freedom. For some reason, freedom for me is one of the cornerstone theories or cornerstone ideas for my life. And that's why whenever somebody asks for me to talk, I choose freedom because I think freedom is very important. I'm going to be partially telling the story of my life, partly asking questions about what you think about it, and that's how we're going to run. So I'm going to start by asking you guys, what do you think is freedom? Anyone has an idea? Yes, please.
Maybe it's a state of yourself when no one is not that no one is influencing you. It's when you influence and some other people influence you, but when you are not bound by this. When you feel free to manage this influence.
So freedom is a state without boundaries.
Globally, yes.
Okay. Does everyone agree that freedom is a state without boundaries?
Maybe in addition, it's feeling.
It's feeling? What do you mean?
In addition. Like,
In Yiddish?
if you feel it,
Yes.
you're free.
So,
In addition, it's like two parts.
so you have to feel it to be free. So you have to understand that you're free. So freedom is nothing without understanding of the fact that you're free. Okay? Good part of it. Any other ideas? Yes, please.
When you have the right to choose and also bear responsibility of what you're choosing.
So it's a state without boundaries when you understand and feel it, when you have a choice. But then you talk about responsibility. So with this comes something else, right?
Yes.
So what is the relationship between freedom and responsibility? Why do we attach responsibility to it?
Because, as was mentioned earlier, freedom is influence, and influence is interconnected with all the members of the society, for example. So you should be aware how your influences them.
This is a very interesting part. So there is a boundary, right? That's what you're saying. That freedom is a state without boundaries, but there is a boundary. And what is that boundary?
The freedom of someone else.
Exactly. So basically your freedom ends where somebody else's freedom starts. So in fact, the freedom is a state without boundaries, free choice, when you actually cautiously understand that you are in that state of free choice, but which ends where somebody else's freedom starts. So in a fact that we are part of the society, but we're limited by other people's freedoms, and we cannot abuse our freedom, so it actually limits the freedom of someone else. I think this is very close to my understanding of freedom. Why do you think this addition of somebody else's freedom is very important? Why do you think this kind of constraint? Why do you think this is key part of the distinguishment of freedom? Why do we add it? What do you think?
I don't completely agree that freedom is the influence because it's maybe what was mentioned, it's more about power, but freedom is not power. But a lot of people think that freedom is power.
Why power? Power was never mentioned.
Yes, but I don't agree that freedom is influence
Okay.
because it's not. Freedom is just for you. It's not for
Nobody
others.
said about, who said influence?
Oh, I said, I repeated.
Okay. Maybe then I lost this point. What do you mean by influence?
Well, when you make a choice,
Yes.
this can influence others.
Yes.
So you should bear in mind that you are responsible for that choice.
But that's more a limitation, which she says. In the history, like maybe modern history, maybe ancient history, where did you see that this balance was lost? This balance between somebody's freedom and somebody else's freedom? Every time. But please raise your hand.
Sorry. Every time.
So pretty much throughout history, every time somebody lost freedom was because somebody wanted to get control, power. And we can see it in totalitarian regimes, we can see it in monarchies, we can see it even in religion. So at some point, somebody's freedom was limited by something. I think this is a very important concept. For me, this is a very important concept because throughout history, a lot of times people's freedom was limited by somebody else's desire. It was a desire for power by somebody, it was desire for money by somebody else, it was desire to control you by somebody else, but it's always somebody's ego limited somebody else's freedom. And I think this balance in many cases is broken. Do you think we are living in a free society? Do you think we're living in a free society? This is very simple. This is the simplest question. Yes, please.
Technically, yes.
Okay.
But de facto, like, no, at all.
No. Okay. What limits you?
What limits
limits your freedom?
Right now, my parents, I'm underage. Like, yes. So what else? Well, it does.
Yeah. Okay. You want to say something?
Yeah, I think freedom of state when you can express your opinion without being harmed or be like in our society there are not a lot of activists who are ready to go against the rules, not the rules, against the government, or say that we want to change this government. And it is a problem. When we want to re-establish something, we are very we're very afraid that somebody will come and do something to our property, to our family, to us. That's why I think we don't live in a freedom society right now.
Okay. By the way, guys, if somebody is more comfortable with Ukrainian, please go ahead and talk in Ukrainian. It's just me who chose English, so you are free to speak in Ukrainian.
Yeah, I do think that right now we Ukrainians live in a much more freedom society than in USSR. For example, I can go to see London, I can go outside. My parents couldn't go to see London. But on the other hand, if I live in a county, I can't, and I'm Ukrainian, I can't sell my land, and for this money I can't go to sell in New Zealand just because I have no allowance to sell my land.
There are some legal
legal
barriers for your freedom, and somebody can say that they are right, somebody can say that it's wrong, but you feel limited by legal constraints.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned parents. You mentioned parents. Do you think it's right for parents to limit freedom of their kids?
As I said, because of law, yes, and actually I think that this is right because like I'm still a child and I'm not always aware of what I'm doing and what the consequences might be, and also the younger the child is, the more unaware and unconsciousness he is about it. So yes, I guess that this is correct. But it should be like restricted because it may cross the boundaries, and there are a lot of psychological problems of a lot of children whose parents were like to control.
So parent control should be limited. There should be a boundary.
Yes.
Okay.
I won't disagree because it doesn't actually correspond to your consciousness and your age at all. Because I met some very little children, like I was an animator in the hotel and I dealt with children who were 7 or 8 years old and who behaved as their adults.
Okay.
And also there are 25-year-old guys and girls who behave as if they are children.
Okay.
So That's why it doesn't really correspond with age. So, but I think that limit is a very relative thing. I cannot answer what is, whether there is freedom in our society or not. It's a difficult question.
Okay. I think a technical comment I want to make about your comment is, you said that I disagree. I think this is great. Actually, in Harvard Business School, you were being measured on how you collaborate, or how you contributed to the discussion. And in most of the cases, the contribution was higher when somebody provided a different point of view, even if it was wrong. Or ask a question. So if you have a question, please feel free to ask it. So the discussion is more effective when different points of view are raised and people are disagreeing with an idea, not with a person, and when they are asking questions. So don't be afraid to disagree, and don't be afraid of asking questions. But I think we actually, you led me to the beginning of my little story, which I was planning to tell you. And it starts actually from my childhood. My thinking about freedom starts from relationship with my parents. And I think that one of the reasons why I am who I am today is because my parents were keeping the boundary which you talked about, and were letting me do my mistakes. And I think this is very important for development of a person. There is two, and my mother and my father were very different. They divorced when I was 6. And I was living with my mother, and she was taking care of me. But my mother is an English teacher, so she is experienced in dealing with children. And I think that plays a role in how she tried to develop me as her son. The key thing in her influence on me was that she always was letting me do my mistakes. So she was giving me freedom to do my mistakes. She never asked me about my homework in school. She never asked me what grade I got in a class. She never asked me what I did after school. So for me, it was always my choice to study. For me, it was always my choice to do homework. For me, it was always my choice to choose what I want to do after school. And I think this was a key thing in my upbringing, that she was giving me freedom to make mistakes, and that mistakes were teaching me how to avoid future mistakes, allowing me to have experiences which shaped me. So I think this balance is very important. But that being said, only now I see that she allowed me to do my mistakes, but she only portrayed it as my choices. In many cases it was her choices. But I always thought that they were mine. So for example, all my childhood I was building rockets. And I thought it was my choice, but she was the one who brought me to this станция юных техников, where I liked this airplanes and ships and rockets, and I got excited. And she chose she chose a place, and I chose the class and a person. So she constructed that experience in a way that it was my choice, but she built it so it was almost predestined that I would like something. So I think the balance with her was very important. And this is something I'm thankful. I think that she shaped me in a lot of ways. And second thing with my father, with him, so they divorced when I was 6, and then he had a different family. We kept in touch, and he helped me, and we were spending some time, sometimes more, sometimes less. But then when I was 15, we started spending much more time together for 2 years. And then he died when I was 17. And the fact of his death was actually the second, probably most important character building experience in me. That his death was a trigger for my freedom in a way. That I disattached myself from the plans which we discussed together or which he had for me, and started making my own choices and started being responsible for my own life. Not just my own life, but the life of my 2 sisters, and maybe a little bit about life of my grandparents, and maybe a little bit about life of my mother. But when he died, I obtained the freedom which shaped me. So again, there's two very surprising events which were very positive for my future life. Is my mother's attitude towards my freedom and my father's death, which set me free, were cornerstone in my youth, which shaped me. So in that sense, I think that at first, in every person's life, it's a freedom of making a choice. And I think you said it, right? You mentioned that you have a choice and you can make it. In my next stage in life, after my father's death, I think my focus was on a second type of freedom. It was more on financial freedom. Why do you think, and have you ever thought about financial? Because a choice, okay, it's good. You can make a choice, you can vote, you can choose I don't know what newspaper you read. But have you ever thought about financial freedom as a part of your life?
Yes.
Who thought about it? Yeah. Roman.
Yeah, sure. Because first of all, not always what you do in life, like your job, is something you really love. You're doing it because you have to earn money to provide your family with living. And of course I dreamt of financial freedom many times, and that's my plan in fact. But I guess that only when you have financial freedom you are really free to do things you really love, because otherwise you're bounded anyway, because you have a boss or your colleagues or your schedule or whatever.
Yeah. How do we get financial freedom in this world?
By work.
Don't forget to raise your hand.
By work.
How?
You work.
What do you mean?
You can either apply for a job, you can find good friends and keep good relationships with these friends, but it's more about job actually. And also you can do something not legal, but it's a bad choice.
But if you work, right? If you get a salary, are you really free?
Relatively, it depends what you mean by freedom. If you feel okay by working for somebody, then it's freedom. But if you are not okay, then you start a business or something else.
Okay.
Thank you. I think that when we are talking about financial freedom, we are talking somehow about Maslow pyramid, because, for example, there are people who don't have what to eat, and they are thinking only about their daily needs and about their day-to-day job and where do their kids go to school. When the person comes to the next stage of this pyramid, the demand for freedom changes. I start to think about my social position in the society. I have another demand for better quality of books, better quality of internet content. I start to think about quality of participation in society events and politics. And when I have more financial resources, I start to think about charity, about some other dividing my budget. And for example, there are a lot of people who, as you started to link this means, people who start thinking about doing their own business. It also means another quality of their life and another stage of being free. Because some people think that they need some capital to work for a man, or for a company, big multinational company, or a Korean company. And after that, after they will have some capital, they will start their own business. And that is another stage of their freedom. We have different demands depending on our financial freedom.
Okay.
I do not want to stroke this year.
Can you hear over there? Is it okay? Can you hear?
But as I imagine financial freedom that's something like Tibet or something like that, because I cannot see financial freedom in entrepreneurship, in high salaries.
You think about Tibet. So is it because the costs are low there?
No, it's because as I mentioned, I've never been there. So as I mentioned, they do not use money for at all or much.
Okay, interesting. You wanted to say something?
As far as I understand, economic freedom is economic independence. Because you can freedom to do what you want, and you can spend the results of your work on what you want.
What do you mean? You can talk in Ukrainian, by the way, if you want.
No. When you have economic freedom, yes, you have some parts of different kinds of freedom.
Okay.
You have freedom of activity, you have freedom of your choice, you have freedom of your time,
Yeah.
and when you choose the freedom of your time,
Yeah.
you can choose the kind of work you want,
True.
you can choose the kind of activity you want, and you have results of your work.
Okay, so freedom for you is when the results of your work belong to you, and when you have a free choice of what to do within.
Yes, and if you have money, you can spend it on the things you want.
Okay, well, true.
So
So
it's-
having enough assets is.
Yes, and when you have some kind of assets, economic assets,
Okay.
it's independence.
That's very important. I mean, I think this is. I think this, for me at least, at some point in life, this became a goal. So I viewed financial freedom as having critical mass of my own assets.
But it's only in case of economic freedom,
Absolutely.
independence.
Absolutely. And then you can be economically free, but if you're in a society which is not free, you're not free, effectively. Okay, we'll get back to that. That's very important. You wanted to say something?
Yes, I believe that having a job that you're really upset, right, and you really like is, of course, an integral part of our life, but working on the government or the enterprise doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you are independent, because you always have to pay taxes, and you're living under the fear because you don't know whether you will be rejected or fired the next day. So you're always living in fear, and the more you earn, the more taxes you have to pay. And of course, it's important to have the job that you admire, so you like doing this, but at the same time, I believe that you have to think about your own business, and it's like investing money or creating something new that make you independent, so you doesn't have to pay any taxes or lower taxes, and being confident that at the moment when you are fired from the job, for example, that you still have a very immutable reliance of your life, that you will stay conscious in your life.
In the United States, there is a saying that there is two things you cannot avoid: it's death and taxes. So let's drop the taxes part, and I think that we all have to pay taxes, and we will always pay it. Just a second, but just 1 second. Just bear with me. Hold this thought. So I think we'll always have to pay taxes. Let's get comfortable with it, and the more we pay, actually, the better off we are. But I think these two last comments are crucial. One is, you have to have enough assets to be economically free, but your economic freedom doesn't give you full freedom. And then the choice between work and having assets, because even if you work somewhere and you like your work and it's your own choice, you cannot be fully free because you're dependent on decision of your boss. You can get fired. So I think this are very, very important points. You want to add something?
Yes, I want to say that financial freedom is something that is very difficult to find because on the one hand, when you start working and you get low salary, you are worrying about money all the time. But on the other hand, when you are very successful and when you got a big salary, even too big, then you got part of this money and about all the things that you have, about big flats, cars, ships. You are always thinking about that, and it's also like a burden. And I was reading like an article about very successful programmist that he had a lot of things and one day he decided that he don't want to care about this, and he sold all his assets and bought a very small flat and is living now in.
Have you seen or read Fight Club? Yes, you've seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Remember the phrase, the things you own end up owning you?
Yes.
So this is relevant to what you're saying, right? At some point your possessions start to possess you and you become dependent on them. Okay? Yeah, well, maybe last
I think
comment.
this programmist who you read an article about hasn't become free because when he sold these all things, he obtained money and he needed to do something with this money. I think that if he had decided to become free, he would rather give it away without any money, and maybe he wouldn't be written an article about it, because I think if people got to know him, then maybe he was advertised or something like this. If he just did it quietly, it was freedom, and we would never know this case. And the other thing is that the freedom is when we talk about this luxurious thing and things like, first of all, salary cannot be too big, I think. But when we talk about this material side of this freedom, I think it's more about people who cannot stop. When they obtain more and more, it's like a human factor which prevents you from not obtaining. You know what I mean? Like impossible to stop. And when you buy more and more luxurious things, even when you don't need them, when you are satisfied with a less level of comfort, you obtain some premium things which you don't necessarily need.
Okay, maybe the last comment in this part. You
That's
want?
why I was talking about freedom.
Okay.
When your possession isn't yours.
All right. Okay. Since 17, for me, the most important part of my life became obtaining financial freedom. And I understood that actually to the point said before, that working somewhere doesn't make you free. Even if your salary is big, even if you like what you do, still you're limited to somebody else's choice. You always are, but in that case, even more so. So I decided to gain independent freedom, and the way I described it for myself was through a concept of passive income. If you read Kiyosaki books, when you have assets which generate some cash flow, and these assets can be real estate, it can be investments into companies, it can be investment into deposits, it can be other assets which generate passive income. It means that you don't have to work, but they are just generating cash flow. So for me, freedom was having enough assets which generated enough cash flow to sustain the life of my family, plus having enough assets, in addition to that, to do whatever next project I wanted to do. So there's two parts. A, there was a sum of assets which had a passive income which was enough to sustain my life and the life of my family. But that wasn't enough, because once you get it, you just can't live, and you can do philanthropy or you can do something else, but that's not enough. I also, in addition to that, wanted to have another group of assets which allowed me to do whatever I wanted to do. So maybe a new business, or maybe philanthropy or politics. So I described freedom in that way for myself when I was 18 or 19, somewhere around that age. So my focus was purely on having assets, and it was all calculated and all kind of money driven. Maybe good, maybe bad, but that's how I was. And I was living my life. My first degree was law, and I stopped practicing law the day I got my diploma. And I started doing business. First I started a film company, which was a film distribution company. We were buying rights for films, and we were organizing the release of those films in the cinema theaters. It was a huge disaster. I lost all my savings, and the company went bankrupt. I sold my car as one of the last assets I had to start a new business. And it was also in film, because I already understood how this industry worked. But it was now focused on television rights. So I was buying television content, and I was selling it to major national TV stations. So 1+1 and Inter were buying films and TV series and cartoons from my company. And it was successful. I was lucky, because it wasn't because I was smart, it wasn't because we had a good business model. It just so happened that that period, starting from 2004 and up until business school, it was probably the best period for this industry anywhere in the world, and even more so in Ukraine. Ukraine was booming. There was a lot of political competition, so there was a lot of political money coming into TV stations. The economy was growing, so a lot of firms were advertising. So the market was doubling every year, and we as suppliers of content to television were benefiting from it. And in television industry, there is a saying that content is king. Actually, most of the margin in television industry is not in the TV stations, is in the content, is in the quality films and quality TV series and quality cartoons, which get the most margin. And that's where we were. And it was very, very, very good times for us. But at some point, I felt that my company grew bigger than my experience, because I never studied business. My first business was not successful. I studied law. At a certain point, we had an office in Moscow, we had an office in Kyiv, we had an office in Odessa, and many people working for us, but I couldn't control it anymore. It was already too big for me to manage, and I felt it, and I thought that I need to go and study. And that's where I applied to business schools. That's when I applied to Stanford, that's when I applied to Harvard Business School, that's when I applied to INSEAD. And I got lucky. I was accepted to Harvard Business School. And for me, I think it was the second life-changing experience. These 2 years I spent in Boston were key to my development. But a very surprising thing happened at Harvard Business School. And for me, it was something which I didn't expect. So I was still, through that time, I was still very much focused on financial freedom, on assets, on money. But the key takeaway from Harvard Business School was that money is not really important. There is a place to it. You can't go without it, but it shouldn't be the goal. And actually, the value which you create is more important than money. But you mentioned a very important point, man, that having enough assets or having financial freedom is not enough, because you can be constrained by other things. And actually, my time in the business school provided different aspects of freedom to me. What do you think is there besides money? What is important in your view to have full freedom besides having financial freedom? Okay.
To choose what you really want.
To choose what you really want. What do you mean by that? Choose what you really want. Choose what?
Your life. Who you are.
Choose who you are. Okay. Okay. Please.
My
essential for society.
Why do you think it's freedom? Why somebody else's perception of you or you being important to someone else? Why does it give you freedom?
Because you get some kind of satisfaction from this.
Satisfaction is not really freedom, right? Yes,
I
please.
think what you said is not freedom, it's ego.
Yes, please.
Knowledge. I think
Knowledge.
Yes, I think maybe partly education, but knowledge because someone has a lot of money, job, property, and especially it's very important nowadays because a lot of people are informative dependent on mass media and some sources of information, and they often only they usually only trust in them without proving the information, without anything about it, and because this knowledge is really provides your freedom and independence on very dangerous trends.
The thing is that when you're
Yeah, thanks. I just want to add that everybody, in my mind, everybody understands the freedom in his own way. Just for example, let's take two guys. One guy is a billionaire, he has like $50 billion. Let's call him Zuckerberg. And this guy, if you ask him, are you free? He will say, yeah, I'm free. I can go to any place on earth whenever I want. I don't need to work. I can do everything. If I want to jump with a parachute, I will jump. If I want to buy a water, I will buy. Yeah, so I'm free, I have a lot of money. And let's take other guy, let's call him Buddha. And Buddha says, I live in Tibet. I don't need parachute, I don't need God, I'm free. I'm free of desires, I'm free of passion, I'm free totally. So, and this guy, if you ask Zuckerberg, is Buddha free? He will say, no, Buddha, because Buddha can't go anywhere, he can do everything. And if you ask Buddha about Zuckerberg, he says, no, Zuckerberg must every month come and take his money, and he is obliged, and if he will do not something, he will lose all his money. So this is like
So, if you were to describe, we have an idea that besides money, you need knowledge to be free. In your example, what is it which makes you free? In Buddha's freedom. What makes Buddha free in your comparison of Buddha and Zuckerberg?
Free of desires, free of passions. It's like philosophy. Yeah, but my personal opinion, it's like in my philosophy, I try to find the bridge. This one freedom, this one freedom. The Zuckerberg freedom and between the freedom of Buddha. I don't want to be a guy who strives for money and gives everything he got to take money, but also I like to travel, I like to achieve success. So I just want to find the bridge between these two freedoms.
So you add the freedom of desires, freedom of your ego.
Freedom of ego, freedom of the
And we had a discussion about ego, right? And I think that ego plays a part in.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yes, please. Yes.
To my mind, I think freedom is also when you feel yourself free mentally, when you can easily speak your mind, when nothing worries you, and also when you have no complexes somewhere about yourself, when you are satisfied with yourself and you accept yourself in this society and can easily be a person who have his own points of view and to protect yourself.
So you mean that freedom is also a lot about how you view yourself?
Yes, yes.
And what do you think about it and your comfort with yourself?
Yes, it's your mental state of yourself.
So in fact, freedom can be not the resources you have, not the knowledge you have, but how do you view yourself?
Yes.
Right? So you set your own.
Yes, I think if a person feel free in his own body, he can easily get everything he wants. You just should try and make some effort for this.
Interesting. Yeah, the idea, guys? Yes, please.
I think having enough money and being knowledgeable about lots of interesting things is pretty important stuff in our life, but the most important thing in our life is actually the time, because it is irreversible. So every day you decide how to spend it, and at first you have to have enough finances for your life, and the most crucial is having enough time for your friends, for your relatives to spend with them. So the time is the most important.
Okay. I think you raised an important point about knowledge. At least that was very important for me back then. One of the reasons I went to Harvard Business School is to maybe financial freedom was still important, but a little less important already. But I felt that even when I have assets, and even if I have cash flow or passive cash flow, I'm still limited by the knowledge I have, which is very Ukrainian, which is knowledge of working with small companies, with my little industry. I didn't understand how the world works. So I wanted to expand my horizon back then. And knowledge gave me in a big part the freedom which I seek, or I thought that was something I needed. The question of time and how you spend your time. I back then viewed it as purely as a financial aspect, because if you have assets and if you have passive income, you don't have to work, you have much more time, and then you have a choice how to use it. I think the ego part is very important too, because this is something which I realized only later, that there's boundaries which we impose upon ourselves, and this is how we are comfortable with who we really are. And this is actually, the ego ties into this. I mean, the ego doesn't let you be comfortable with who you are because you want to be something more, you want to impress someone else. But I think I understood it only later. Yes, please.
Because you can combine striving to be better and this.
True. At the second year at Harvard Business School, we had a choice. We either could take a class, or we could choose a topic, and we could write a paper instead of taking a class. We could choose a professor who can lead your personal research, and you can write a paper together with that professor. And I was passionate about Ukraine. Although I wanted to broaden my knowledge and I wanted to become a global citizen, I still wanted to come back to Ukraine because that was my home. That's where I saw a lot of opportunity. That was where my experience was. So even there, I wanted to go back. So in the second year, instead of taking one class, I decided to write a paper, which I thought of writing about strategic plan of development of Ukraine. I thought that would be a great topic that I could, while I was at Harvard, it would be very easy to write a plan. I would come back with a plan, and maybe it would help my country. So I decided to take this topic, and I spent a summer here trying to put together some papers about it. Didn't really work. I went to my professor and said, I don't know where to start. This is it's an interesting topic, but what should I do? He said, don't you think that it's a bit too broad? What do you want to write there? I don't know. So he said, why don't you focus on one part of it to start with, and then let's see where it goes. And he advised to focus on foreign direct investments. Who doesn't know what FDI, what foreign direct investment is? You don't? Okay. How many people study economics here? A big part. Okay, who can explain what is foreign direct investment? You can explain. Well, you said you don't know what it is.
I said I know.
Oh, you do? Okay, who doesn't? Who doesn't know what foreign direct investment is? You don't? Good. I didn't know back then, so don't worry. So you said you can explain what it is. Okay, please go ahead. You don't have to stand up, don't worry.
I can say. For example, there is a company lifestyle which was live previously, and 54% of shares of stocks of this company belonged to Turkcell, Turkish company, and another 46% belonged to Renat Ahmed. And foreign direct investments are these 54% which another country invested in the Ukrainian company, which was Ahmed's 100% somehow DCC, and then Turkcell bought DCC company and they shared the stocks. But Turkcell started to control life, started to manage all processes, build the politics of company, investor relations, management support, different marketing companies. And I know that there is a difference when somehow mother companies don't control and have less shares. And for example, it can be 20%, but in that case, mother foreign company doesn't have rights to manage and to dictate its rules. So it can depend.
I think you give a great example. I think your definition is right. So in theory, foreign direct investment is whenever somebody from outside the country makes a cash investment into a company within the country or starts a company where it owns more than 10%, so the size of the stake matters. And when the plan is to hold the stake for long term, so portfolio investment when somebody buys stocks and then sell it in a few days doesn't consider foreign direct investment. It's a long-term, substantial investment, and it should be cross-border. So it should be from one country to another country. So these are the main criteria of foreign direct investment. Do you think, how many people think that foreign direct investment is bad for the country? There is actually a group of economists who think that, they don't say it's bad, but they question its positive effect. So okay, who can question the positive effect of foreign direct investment?
Maybe some international company who is interested in being monopoly on their market, and foreign company can be companies.
I'm not saying that who can be against it out of the market players, but in theory, are there any negatives of foreign direct investment? Yeah, you wanted to say?
They are. The company in our country is independent in their choices because the value and the shares belong to other countries' company.
There is an argument that somebody can buy an asset not for economic reasons, but for political reasons or a military reason, and there is that risk. Any other negatives of foreign direct investment?
National productions, the companies that got some manufacturers of products in Ukraine, they become punished by the transnational companies that enter our market.
Okay. Who thinks foreign direct investment is good? Everyone else is undecided. You can either think it's good or bad. Okay, who thinks it's bad? No. Who thinks it's good?
It depends.
Who doesn't speak English? I thought it's very good. And my professor thought it's very good. And actually, most of the economists think that foreign direct investment is good. Because foreign direct investment brings capital to places where there is a lack of capital. Foreign direct investment brings knowledge and technology where there is a lack of technology. Because most of the investors, besides capital, they bring their expertise, managerial expertise or technological expertise. They open up markets because international companies are usually better to sell the products which are produced locally to the global markets. And they're long-term. It means that they make a long-term impact. The negative parts, one was mentioned there, that sometimes it's not always economic reasons to buy, but also in all of cases the profits are moved overseas and they're not staying in the country. And in some cases the companies are bought for competitive reasons. So for example in Poltava there was a diamond production factory which was bought by De Beers just to destroy it because it was competing with its diamond trade. So there is this negative impact which may be, but in general it's usually positive. What do you want to add?
Investors can anytime take their money back.
They want, yeah, they can, but this is what investment is for, right? You give money to get more. So it's not.
When there is some vulnerable situation in economic country, and then investors become to get their money back, then our economic suffers
True.
much more.
This usually happens with portfolio investments. So when it's very liquid stocks which they can sell right away on stock exchanges, and that's why portfolio investments usually are less attractive for a country because in the bad situation the investors start selling it, the prices go down, the panic starts. But with foreign direct investments, because it's long term, usually in the bad times the investors stay because they just cannot sell their property. So there is much less of such effect in the case with the foreign direct investments. But anyways, so I thought it was good, right? So I decided to study and focus on foreign direct investments. You probably somewhere here are asking, how does it? What is the relationship between foreign direct investments and freedom? Is there any relationship between foreign direct investment and freedom? Yes.
Yes, it's because of decision.
Okay.
Because when you have more shares than 50, you have a right of decision, and you can control all the company.
Okay.
So it should be limited for foreign investors.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but do we talk in this case about foreign direct investment or simply investment? Because it's different things. Because foreign direct investment is more about cross-country relationships, not about investing in the company.
But is there a freedom related to cross-country relationships?
Yeah, on the national level, perhaps if we talk about country independence, then maybe the more foreign direct investment you have, maybe the more dependent you become because you own the country who lends you money. But actually, it can be looked also on the other side, and it means it depends on from what side do we look on it. Because on one hand, the more FDI, the less freedom, but on the other hand, it gives us freedom because we have more money.
Okay. For me, there is a direct relationship between economic freedom within the country and foreign direct investment. Because the less free economy there is in the country, less foreign direct investment it gets. And the investors don't like places with a lot of limitations on the economy. But when I started to work on foreign direct investment into Ukraine, I actually uncovered several very important things which shaped my future life. And actually, they shaped a lot what I do today. So the first thing I did in this paper was I plotted foreign direct investments into this simple graph. Does everyone see it? Who doesn't see the graph? Everyone sees it. Good. So what is surprising? Does everyone understand the graph? Who doesn't understand the graph? So basically, this is the amount of foreign direct investment Ukraine got in every year since 1995 up until the day I wrote the report. And this is in $1 billion. So effectively, in 1995, Ukraine got maybe $300 million of foreign direct investment. In 2004, it got something like $2 billion of foreign direct investment. And then in 2005, it got $8 billion of foreign direct investment. What is surprising in this? Does anyone see?
Why was there a fall between 2005 and 2006?
We'll see it, actually. You'll know why there is a fall. But anything else is striking? Anything else is surprising to you looking at this graph?
Trend.
Trend, what do you mean by that?
Trend is our friend. Well, I mean the skyrocketing.
Yeah, something happened. Something happened.
Anticipations, they really changed.
Do you think it's just anticipation?
No, the reality also changed as well, but more anticipations and illusions than reality, unfortunately.
So something happened in 2004 and 2005. Actually, if you combine all the years together, you will get less than 2005. So something happened in 2004, 2005 that in 1 year Ukraine got more foreign direct investments than in all years before that.
It's very easy. It was the revolution.
Yeah. What happened? What happened in the Orange Revolution?
The Ukrainians demanded for the right to choose their president, the right to for honest election.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Freedom of choice. There was
then-
something related to freedom of choice. Okay. Do you think $8 billion is a lot or not? In relationship to Ukrainian economy, what is the size of Ukrainian gross domestic product today? Who knows the number? Around $90 billion. So today, all Ukrainian economy is $90 billion. So in relationship to $90 billion, $8 billion to FDI is a lot or not? Who thinks it's a lot? 3, 4 people. Okay, who thinks it's not a lot? You think it's small? Why?
Because we need to cover our debts, because a lot of reasons actually, but mainly because we need to cover our debts.
We need more, that's true. But $8 billion in the context of a $90 billion economy is huge. Like 10% of the economy in FDI is a lot.
Yeah, in this sense, yes.
So I also saw that there was a skyrocket in 2005, but I thought of explaining it by the Orange Revolution, but that wasn't enough. I mean, so what? Okay, Orange Revolution happened. What I did then, I tried to look into the sectors and understand where this foreign direct investment was going to. And I saw a very surprising thing. In 2005, more than half was going into the steel industry, into metals industry. Who knows what it is? What happened there?
In the metal industry.
Yeah, in 2005, what happened there?
Metal, steel, was what?
Exactly.
Style.
So half of the foreign direct investments in 2008 was because of one simple decision of selling style in a free, transparent tender process. So one simple decision brought more foreign direct investments than probably 4 or 5 years before that. Is it surprising to you? One simple decision. But that wasn't enough for me. I decided to look into other sectors. This is the financial sector. In the financial sector, there is $2.5 billion in 2006 and $1.5 billion in 2005. So together it's another $4 billion of foreign direct investment. What is it? Who knows what this is?
Financial service organizations.
Who said Raiffeisen? So what happened with Raiffeisen?
Raiffeisen entered Ukraine and bought
That's one. What else? What about Unicredit? What about Svet? What about SEB? Hawaii was big. Hawaii was big, I agree. But why did they enter? What happened? Why all of a sudden they made this investment? Does anyone know?
Well, because the expectations for the growth of the economy were high, and they decided, okay, we will catch some proposals from people, we will correct a little bit the economy, and we will earn.
course, they had expectations. But what else? Who knows the story of 10 banks? Actually, in this two years, 10 banks were acquired. And they were acquired at very high valuations. And besides $4 billion of foreign direct investment, there were much more capital coming in because the banks were getting money from their parent companies. The reason this acquisition has happened was because before 2004, there was a limitation. Foreign banks were not allowed to open branches in Ukraine, so they couldn't enter the Ukrainian market. They were allowed to set up a little representative office with their little Raiffeisen brand, but they were not allowed to do banking in Ukraine. In 2004, this limitation was abolished. And this little limitation, by being abolished, caused $4 billion of foreign direct investments and then much more capital coming in through the banks, lending and recapitalizing of the banks. So again, do you think it was a simple decision back then to abolish this limitation? People were afraid the Raiffeisen will come and kill our banking industry, right? Then I looked at other things, and I uncovered a very interesting aspect. So Raiffeisen, BNP Paribas, Bank Intensa, Credit Agricole, it was 10 banks which were acquired. Tourism. Export of tourism. How much is it together? 5.6, 10, 16, around $20 billion. What is it? Visa. Exactly. In 2004, the new government in Ukraine abolished visas for European and American citizens. So they could enter Ukraine without getting a visa. Simple decision. They were limited from getting into Ukraine by a restriction. The simple restriction, after it was lifted, brought another $20 billion. This is not FDI. This is the money which they're spending by coming into Ukraine. Again, $20 billion. Ukrainian economy today is $90 billion. So a quarter of Ukrainian economy was brought by tourists, just because the visas were abolished. Yeah, go ahead.
Not only because the visa was abolished, but also because, for example, Eurovision contest, and then later Euro is not included in the graph, but I think that such events, due to such events, the Ukraine was known to the foreign tourists.
Okay. Maybe.
Can I a little bit argue? Just
Yeah.
I can't not to argue. It's like a Eurovision contest. I think the share is like really tiny. How many dozens of tourists came to see Eurovision? And on the other hand, the graph is telling about the 2008 and the decision that 2012 championship was made only in 2007. So it's like, well, you're right. Yeah, you're generally right, but you can't say from this graph that Eurovision and Euro 2012 can really contribute to the economy. You just can't say.
Yes, but world get to know that Ukraine exists. And
Yeah, but
they
you
come
can't
here.
say.
Any other arguments, ideas?
Do you have a breakdown of nationalities coming to Ukraine? How many of those people are from Europe, US, or Russia?
You can look it up. You can find this number. I don't have it, but it's not a secret.
Because it looks like most of them are Russians who are traditionally coming to Ukraine in summer or throughout the year. So the question is why they started coming more often.
Do you think that more Russians started coming after 2004 and 5?
I think the question is quite big.
I'm curious to look at it. I think actually that the amount of Russian tourists is pretty much the same. I don't think that there was a spike, but I looked back in 2003, 2002, the tourism was very small. So there's a huge growth, and I don't think it's from Russia. You can double check, but I'm sure Russians are pretty stable in that respect. Maybe a little growth, but not these numbers. So for me, the study which I did actually led to my future work on deregulation, which we're doing with my colleagues. And the work which we're doing right now is focused on economic freedom. We think that economic freedom in terms of limiting the influence of government on the economy is actually crucial to our ability to live happy lives and our ability to be successful, our ability to live in a developed economy. We think that limitations which government is imposing on business is a huge detriment to development of the Ukrainian economy. 3 simple decisions: abolishing a visa, running a transparent tender process, and allowing banks to function in our country brought $30 billion of capital into a $90 billion economy. This is huge. The 3 simple decisions. There may be hundreds of such decisions which the government can do to dramatically improve our lives. We'll probably be ending our discussion right now. And maybe the last part, maybe we'll spend 5 or 10 minutes on it. Is there, in your view, is there a similar economic decision in terms of freedom of economy, which the government has right now, which can have a similar impact on Ukraine's economy? Whoever knows, please don't share this. Is there a similar problem which can be solved to have a similar impact on Ukraine's economy right now? Who has an idea?
Sell off land?
How did you know?
Just guess.
We think that lifting the moratorium can bring $5 billion of foreign direct investment per year. What is the moratorium? Can you explain, everyone? What
It's
is
a restriction of the people, I think, that can own the farmland in Ukraine.
Yeah, right now, 7 million Ukrainians privatized agricultural land. Each one of them owns around 4 hectares. So 28 million hectares are in private property, but they cannot sell it. They just have 2 options. First option, they can take a tractor and go plant potatoes. And then the second option is that they can give it to an agro holding for very low price and get some money or maybe potatoes back from the agro holding. Oh, they have a third choice. They can die, and then the kids can inherit it. So in effect, they don't have a property right, because without your choice of selling it or giving it as a gift, it's not property, it's something else. It's actually a very unique Ukrainian phenomenon. No other country has a similar limitation. There's 28 million hectares of land. If you apply any benchmark to it, it's around $50 billion worth of assets. $50 billion is frozen. It's not being sold and bought. It's not being used as a collateral in a bank to get a loan, to go and study or to go and open a little business or to do agriculture. It's just frozen, $50 billion, which our government just decided that the guys are stupid. They think that they thought that they will exchange land for a local vote or something else. Who disagrees with me? Who thinks that moratorium should be kept?
I have some concerns about this being a political invasion rather than an economic investment in Ukraine.
What do you mean by that?
If other countries came to Ukraine, bought our land, and there is no evidence that they would use it for agriculture, or they would engage rural citizens or our specialists to work on the land. There are no, I don't know what they will do with this land.
So back to the argument which was made by our meeting colleague that they might buy it for other reasons.
Yes, And also, I think that this problem could be solved in other way. The reason that the people who owns these land plots get very little money is maybe because the state could connect the market price of the land to the payment they receive.
Okay. Yes, please.
I think it should be abolished, but we should determine some kind of requirements regarding the land,
Okay.
the usage of the land.
Okay. Anyone else?
I think that it's just a question of fear that we want to keep our status quo and fear that we can't manage the change, and the next step will be the game and the Ukrainian people not be in the side that wins. And maybe I think most people think that this change will be very fast and the new owners be not as good as the old owners.
Okay. Your comment.
I have a concern that nobody raises that Ukrainian history has already similar example to that when mass privatization happened. And a lot of people got their piece of big plants and production plants. And then a few years after, it happened and oligarchs owned it. So, yeah, I guess it's more the question to the audience, why this time would be different?
Okay. Just because I said I will spend 10 minutes on it, I can give you my comments. Otherwise, I would ask you to counter them. But your first question or concern that foreigners would buy it for questionable reasons, probably half of the countries in the world which allow private property for land don't have the limitations on foreigners owning. So effectively, foreigner can buy it. And in 0 countries out of this half, there was such an abuse which you said. So theoretically, everything is possible, but it just doesn't happen. It never happened through this mechanism. There's a lot of wars happening because somebody wants to take somebody's territory, but in no case somebody bought somebody else's land and then was just sitting on it or not using it or misusing it. So history doesn't prove that important. You compared it to the privatization in the 90s, probably to the voucher privatization when everyone was giving a paper and people didn't know what to do with this paper. Yes, and they traded it for $5 or $10 and somebody collected these vouchers and bought companies. I don't think this is the right parallel. I think the better parallel is the privatization of apartments. Remember that most of you guys and your parents and your families got an apartment through privatization from the government. And yes, some people mismanage it. Some people become alcoholics and lost it, or somebody became a part of a scam and lost the apartment. But more than 90% actually manage it in the right way. They are living in it, so they sold it and bought a different apartment. So no oligarchs bought half of the apartments in Ukraine. So it's tangible. People understand the value of it. And the thing with the apartment didn't happen. Why should it happen with the land? I don't see a risk of it. Was there any other problems with that? I don't think so. But I think that in general, it's one of the most unfair things which happened in Ukraine. That people were giving a carrot. I mean, they were said that you own this land, but then they cannot do anything without it. This is just unfair. I think we'll be wrapping up here. If you have any questions, you can ask them now. Is there something which you want to ask? It's great. Probably we answered all your questions. I think I want to end with, guys, be free. You mentioned in the end that people are afraid. I think that the biggest limitation to somebody's freedom is actually your own fears. Economic freedom can be obtained. The freedom of totalitarian regime can be overcome. Most of the other limitations to your freedom can be actually ignored, but your biggest constraint is usually your fear. It's usually your own fear which limits you from doing something. So be free from your fears, and then that would set you free. But again, only to the limit of somebody else's freedom. Because once you start expanding your freedom to the expense of somebody else, that means that somebody else is suffering. And there should be a balance to it. So be free, good luck to you, and wish you success. Thank you very much.
Я дуже вдячний нашому спікеру. Я думаю, кожен з нас щось сьогодні взяв для себе. Можливо, ви щось для себе обдумаєте, що таке свобода для вас, приймете якісь нові рішення, якісь нові цілі поставити в себе в житті. Я хочу подякувати вам за дуже інформативну і надзвичайно цікаву лекцію. Це подяка від нашої організації. Ще раз привітаємо оплесками.
До побачення.
Вам